Hey, it's exciting to be here, right? With the three of us and all of you here. And we are going to share a little bit more about who we are in a minute, but we'd love to know, first of all, who are you? Obviously, we're not going to hear who are you in the big story sense, but who are you in terms of like whether you identify as a coach, a team coach, a leader? So we're going to put a few things out and ask you to play the game with us by raising your hand if you identify with any of these, and you might be raising your hand a lot or not, but we'd just love to see who's here in the room.
Who here is a coach?
And any team coaches here? Okay, quite a few.
Do we have any group coaches? Yeah. There's some group coaches.
Supervisors?
And anyone that would consider themselves to be a team coach supervisor or a supervisor providing team coach supervision? Awesome. Great.
And what about leaders? Maybe there's everybody put the hands up then, I don't know. We all leaders. It's just a funny question. I'll put my hand up as well. Leaders. Often working a lot with teams. And there's maybe some other roles that you identify with that are important for us in here today. So please feel free to put those in the chat too, so that we all know who we're here, who's here, and how we're showing up with our different hats today. Do we see?
Oh, researcher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice to see some familiar names and faces. Lecturer, trainer. Well, as we're seeing all of these different roles and connection points come in, I don't know, Kerry and Sherry, do you want to tell a little bit about our roles and how we've connected as the Novalda group, Novalda team?
Yeah, absolutely. We can weave it all in together because we are, as we are, the two parts sparkle, one part skid. No, I was going to say skid stains, not grass stain, not skid stains, grass stains. But there we go. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these roles have really supported us on our journey as human beings, number one, and but also as coaches, supervisors, team coaches, team supervisors, and trainers as well. And I know, I guess I'm going to start with, I met Sherry, I don't know how many years ago, 2006 or 7, in a coach training. And from there, we started team coaching. So primarily doing a lot of team coaching from 2010 onwards. So we've been co-coaches in team coaching forever, it feels like now. So that was like one of our initial starting points and one of our roles. I'll pass it on to who wants to pick it up.
I'm probably going to do longer. So, hi, everyone. I'm Sherry Matheson. Just really delighted to be here with you all today and with my colleagues, Larissa and Kerry as well. And I'm going to say, as Kerry pointed out, like my journey into team coaching started many years ago. I've been a coach for 17 years in its entirety. One of the things, and this is like I'm going to say about team coaching, was I feel like I was fortunate enough to have a co-coach, which was mostly Kerry. And we would do like, I'm going to say reflections before, during, and after. So we were kind of like doing supervision, but we didn't really know that that's what we were doing at the time. But that really supported, I'm going to say we, because I think it did support us both. Because we found that it can be really isolating. Like if you didn't have a co-coach and someone to reflect with and debrief, like, am I going nuts? Like, did you see that? Like, that felt really, intense. Or that seems like this seems really complex. And there is a lot of complexity in that. So that's one of the things that meeting Larissa, who was a supervisor as well, and was one of my supervisors, is just having that space. And then being with other team coaches in supervision. And it's like, oh, I'm not alone. Like, even though they're working with different teams, we're all experiencing these same sort of complexities and things like that. So that's, yeah, I'll leave it at that. Larissa.
Thanks. Yeah. So what you're speaking to, Sherry, that isolation, I guess I was, as soon as I finished my one-on-one coach training, I was kind of longing for teams. I have always had sort of a systems perspective, but I was living in Qatar, and this was 15, 20 years ago, and maybe 15 years ago. That sounds more right. And there weren't a lot of coaches out there. So when I moved back to Canada and connected with Kerry and Sherry, it felt just amazing. And for me, I'd always wanted that place for reflection. And I found supervision, which was quite interesting because I was in North America. And at that point, like, nobody knew what supervision was. They thought it was a manager. So that's kind of how we've come together and created our beautiful entity that we have together, with strengths both in team coaching and supervision. And that's why we want to kind of bring that to our conversation today. So we'll delve, explore, and adventure into both of those worlds of team coaching. How is that, and how is supervision? I'll just hand it over to talk about our title for today. And I don't know if Kerry, you want to step in here? And yeah.
I can step in here. Yeah. So our title, I don't know, we feel like I need to test you. Does anyone remember what it is as we test ourselves here? But our title was like Team Coaching Supervision, Flavor of the Month, or Cherry on Top. So when you hear that title, I mean, obviously you came here, but as you hear it again, even now, or when you heard that originally, we're sort of curious about, what arose in you with that, like what sensation showed up in your body. Oh yeah, no, it's just flavor of the month, or oh no, it is cherry on the top, or I don't even know what it is. So just noticing what's showing up in your response to that. And also, maybe what might you think it is? Is it cherry on top, or is it flavor of the month? Maybe there's something that's coming up for you there. Or maybe, I'm putting lots of questions in here, not very coach-like, but just putting these in as reflections. Maybe there's questions that emerge as you hear that. So we'd love to sort of get a sense of that, maybe in the chat right now, if you're willing to just sort of share a little bit in the chat there. When you hear Team Coaching Supervision, Flavor of the Month, or cherry on the top, what shows up in any of those spaces? And we'd just love to get a little sense of that in the chat.
Well, I'm seeing that, cherry on top reminds Dave of cake. Loves cake.
Love cake. So yeah, so I love that cake. What else is coming up?
Be a decadent cake.
Well, we were talking about breakfast this morning and luxurious breakfast. So maybe it's like, cake all day, or cake at different or particular times. What else is coming up? Yeah.
Evolution in the maturity of the profession.
Playful and an invitation to explore. Yeah. Lots of
Cherry
exploration.
on top in terms of the largest challenge in terms of supervision, complexity.
Yeah. Awareness.
Oh, we've got a neither. Love it. Neither cherry on top or flavor of the month, but crucial interventions necessary for coaching to flourish. I love the systemic beyond even, the coach or the supervision, but our whole discipline, our whole profession.
Yeah, and another perspective or a response, flavor of the month, perhaps based on my co-coaching experience. So yeah, things, however, what our stories are and what's shown up for us and our experiences. Curiosity for me both. We go, thank you. Oh, night vision. Now I'm like,
Curious about that one.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
lovely.
So we thought what we would do is, to explore this further, whether, teams coaching supervision is different from supervision for individual coaches or not. Perhaps we might start with this question: how is team coaching different from one-on-one and group coaching? And so we're going to put you in breakout rooms, and we're going to talk about, so what is the purpose? Who shapes the goals? What competencies and skills are utilized by the coach? And what are the unique challenges of team coaching? So just exploring that question: how is team coaching different from one-on-one and group coaching? And let's start there.
So you can hear the beautiful music that Nicola's put on here. We want you to be able to enjoy that for a bit longer, Nicola, because we'd love to have you pop into the chat those insights that have bubbled up to the surface from your conversations with those in your group, or those with yourself, those of you that had that conversation with yourself as well. So yeah, please just start to share in the chat what's bubbled up, what's important to capture here collectively together. And we'll have a couple of minutes.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
You, me, Larissa.
Lots of great reflections here.
It's delicious.
Definitely some common themes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep them coming. There's any more to come, well, and again, you can pop them in at any time as well, but if there's any more to come, just bring them in. Really nice. Great. So what we're going to sort of like pick some of these up and weave them into the conversation. We do want to hear some of your voices out loud as well, along with the conversation. But yeah, Larissa and Sherry, what are you picking up on in here for us to start?
Seeing a lot around complexity, which is something we experience and hear a lot. Seen it many, many times. Contracting as well. There's one that came that was really quite kind of different. I've heard it before, but I'd love to invite maybe Leanne. There was something about I can't see if I can find it, about the family on the team and just how that might show up for coaching. Do you want to say a little bit more about that, Leanne?
Hello. Yes, very briefly. Just one's being aware of one's family template and the role one takes up in their own experience of their upbringing. So be it a younger sibling, middle, only child, elder, a blended family. So understanding the role you take up at that in those early years, or in that crucial stage, and how that might play out in a group setting. Are you the disruptor? Are you the peacekeeper? Are you the one that, quietly observes and remains silent? Are you the one that wants to keep jumping in but having to hold your tongue? Just having an awareness of, I think the word is valency, your valency within the group, so that you can therefore manage it better. And that can often come from where you are in your family.
Thank you for that.
In essence. Thank
you. Yeah, that's really juicy. And how does that interplay with the coach or coaches and the supervisor, all of those different, that's a really interesting lens to bring onto that. What are you noticing, Sherry and Kerry?
I'll go for like one near the beginning, some obvious ones, like that the difference between group and team coaching is interesting. And there's a few in here and around that. So I am just gonna I'm gonna pop a little slide up to see what everyone has to say about, that, because quite often there's a whole conversation around, group and team coaching, just to even get into that space. So this is just a slide or an image, I guess, a slide with images on, or that's looking at the distinction between individual, group, and team coaching. So I'm going to take a look and see what's standing out from this, but also from your conversations around group and team coaching and the differences. And then we'd love to hear, like, if there's anything that's standing out from this or from those conversations, what is coming up around the difference between group and team and how that plays out. And feel free to just take your mute off and speak.
There was a comment around more discovery needed. Role of coach is different from one-on-one coaching. So I don't know if this is providing some thoughts, sparking anything.
There's also a lot around trust and psychological safety. I wonder if there's any differences that anybody wants to speak to there. Well, I think we're saying that, team coaching is different from group coaching. That's some of the things that are coming through in the chat. It seems like there's some unique challenges, lots around contracting and recontracting.
Yeah, Leanne, we talked about how team is a cohesive group, and group is more like it's more like a group of
not desperate.
Yes. Group of individuals. Yeah. And I think you're speaking to this image that we have up here. Yeah.
And I see Esther as well here in the comments. You can also have a group with a common purpose where the purpose is shared. However, group members have different approaches and opinions. So moving from a group to a team remains challenging as well. So yeah, it could be that there could be a group that wants to move to, it's important, a working group, but it's actually important for them to move to be a team as well. And are they aligned on that even, or are they, no, we don't need to be a team. We're going to stay as a working group.
And that might be speaking. Oh, sorry, Sherry.
I was just going to say that the gold stars here really represent, like, so here for the team, that's their common goal, their objectives, that type of thing. And then with group coaching, they each have their individual goals, right? But like Kerry said, they're coming together around a common theme, but they have individual goals around that common theme. And then one-on-one coaching, dealing with the individual and their goals and objectives. Yeah. So just
And-
capturing what some of you have already said in the chat here. Yeah.
And I see, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Motiva? You're just on mute.
It's Gamze. Motiva is my company name. Thank you.
Okay.
And
Gamze.
I think in the group coaching and team coaching, in the team coaching process, you also coach on the relations in between the team. Coaching the relation, not only the people, but also the dynamic, coaching the dynamics and creating a reflective space on the dynamics of the interactions is a crucial distinction.
Yeah, yeah. And how does that compare when you're coaching just sort of the relationship in front of you with the one person versus multiple relationships, both that you can see in the room and all those relationships that are not necessarily visible in the room, but you know that are part of that team? We start to feel some of that complexity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think that's where the awareness comes from. When you include the whole system, the ghost relations there, which is not really in the room, but creating awareness or raising questions, at least to think outside the coaching process.
Yeah. Love that you're bringing the ghost. So not only kind of maybe stakeholders that might not be in the room, but also ghosts of former leaders or former team members. And we as coaches are coaching all of that. So
yeah, it could be the impact of a political system or the economic system as well. I mean, there's a wider system.
Starting to hear lots around systems. Anybody else want to come in on this?
It's around, systemic team coaching. It's looking at the whole system, so bringing the stakeholders in to the room as well. So bringing the stakeholders' voice into the room with the team. And but I mean, you can use it in individual coaching as well. But it's kind of the complexity of the relationships and the dynamics, because Nina showed a lovely graphic of two people and the relationship, and then there's three people, and then there's five people, and then there's all the interrelationships. So there are so many more levels of dynamics that you're dealing with, and as I said, it's like the whole system. And sometimes in teams, things that are in the system get stuck in the team, and the team don't realize that they're just reenacting something that's happening in the system itself. So, and that's the difference, and it can happen as well, helping, working with the team leader. You can help them become aware of what's stuck, but it's when you're dealing with not even juggling, but so many different moving parts. And when I team coach, we often co-coach, because one person can speak and the co-coach can observe. So we kind of lean in and out, observing and playing different roles and noticing different things. And so more eyes.
Yeah, thank you, Pam.
Nice.
Yeah, and I see, it's talking about systems within systems within systems. And I see also a comment from Nina, that they mentioned in the breakout room that the team coach is part of a team system. Here in the visual, we have it outside the circle. Any thoughts on that? So I'm just gonna, I'll share my thinking, and so here we have the team coaches or coaches. So love that co-coaches have been spoken about. So there's a subsystem there. Oh, I've got my echo. And then there's this system of the team here. And then there's the system of, maybe there's a business unit, an organization in the world. And so, we have the team coaches outside of the team as a system in itself, because, even when we're talking about the family template earlier on, we do need to, we do get enrolled in part of the system. We want to be able to make sure that we're holding that boundary outside the system to be able to support and help the system see itself, because we're not there all the time as team coaches. We are not part of their everyday system, but yes, of course we are in that moment when we're with them. So I don't know, Larissa and Sherry.
I would just add to that, like, I think the other thing is you want to be as objective as you can be. So if you can have that arm's length and not be a part of the system, I speak from that, from being an internal coach, wanting to keep that distance, because when you're part of the system, it's hard to coach the system sometimes. The other thing is, I think the other reason why we have it outside is because you want the team to have conversations and not have the conversations go through you as team coaches. So you want them, when they're responding to questions or working, that they're doing it collectively and not going through you as team coaches.
Yeah, I think Pamela has captured it really nicely by kind of saying that we're part of the system, but we're not part of the team, right? So we're impacting on that system, but we're not. And that can be something that often comes to supervision, is getting enmeshed with the team. So I see that Roxanne has her hand up, and we'll maybe take that one comment or question, and then we're going to move to another breakout room as we get into some of these juicy complexities. So Roxanne.
Very quickly, I see my role as a team coach as someone who's there to help the team become more autonomous and accountable within itself. So once I leave, they can still continue their journey. They can continue to work better as a team, because they develop new reflexes, and they're holding themselves as a team more accountable without me necessarily being present at all times.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think the three of us very much believe in sort of revealing the team, the system to itself, and letting them kind of start to self-coach so that we can then sort of leave them in a more kind of sustainable position. So thanks for bringing that, Roxanne. Love to open up some more discussion, but I think maybe that might be nice to do in smaller groups. So this part of the breakout, this initial breakout was really to highlight that one-on-one coaching, group coaching, team coaching all have very similar skills in some ways. And so, if we were to have a Venn diagram, there's a lot of overlap. But as we're pointing out, with all of these complexities and nested systems within systems, etc., that team coaching is definitely different. And perhaps, we would agree that it's more complex. So what does that mean for the world of supervision? And that's where we're going to head to next. So we're going to have Nicola do her magic to get you into breakout groups again, and I will just pop into the chat. There's a few questions here, and we would invite you. We don't know necessarily what your role is, if you're more in the coaching space or supervising space or both. So you have some autonomy here to choose what you would like to discuss in your group. So thinking about team coaching, we wanted to know why might supervision be essential, especially for team coaches. Now we know we're on an EMCC call, but ICF is requiring team coaches to get supervision, but not necessarily individual coaches. And I don't want to open up a whole political conversation, but why might it be more essential for team coaches? And then the other one, how might team coaching supervision be an ethical consideration? So we haven't really heard a lot about ethics yet, but that might be a juicy one for you to pick if interested. And then 3 and 4 are more looking at the supervisor and the supervision space. So based on what we're saying about team coaching, what might that mean for supervisors? And Kerry or Sherry, do you want to talk about, just really quickly before we go, about the reflexivity versus reflection that we're really holding? Is it a difference here?
Yeah, what I'll say there is, we look at it in 3 different ways. We can preflect on something, like looking like before we've gone ahead. We can reflect looking back. And yeah, like really, and they're great. and they're important, but really that muscle of being able to know what's happening with us, knowing what's happening in the space, and beyond. You're talking about ghost roles and things like that, all at the same time, in the moment to moment, is really what's needed for team coaches to be able to work with that complexity. So we believe that reflexivity is one of the key skills that's required not only for team coaches and teams, but for leaders in our world right now to work in the moment. Yeah.
Thanks, Kerry. So that's kind of what we're getting at with question 4 there. And I don't want to take up any more of your time to chat. So Nicola, if you would like to break out those rooms, we would love for people to dig in.
Let's just take a few moments to have you capture what insights or what stands out for you from your conversations. And when you're ready, put it in the chat.
Well, perhaps as people are typing up, I just want to make sure we use our time. Is there anyone that wants to speak rather than type? I know it might have been typing for a long time, and we're happy to hear some voices of what came up in your groups. There were definitely some, I think anyway, some juicy questions. So I'd love to hear some of the conversations where we feel like we missed out on that part. So yeah, thanks, Jeremy.
Hi, Larissa, and everyone, and Kerry and Sherry. We had a wonderful conversation about team coaching and the potential links in with supervision. For example, that team coaching often is more structured than individual coaching. So you might create a plan. You might have an idea of the kind of exercises you might want to lead people through. So it becomes as much of a facilitation exercise in the moment. And as such, you're more likely to get projected onto. Fix us. Take us through this process. Why is this process not working? It's your fault. So there's something to take to supervision, and that comes up in supervision in terms of what's happening in teamwork. And then the other part of the conversation, which I must say Peter raised, and you might want to add to this, Peter, in the conversation, reflecting on how we were discussing that, he said, sounds like war, no plan survives first contact with the enemy stuff. Yeah. And that flexibility in once you're in the room. And then of course that comes to supervision. Well, I had all my best laid plans laid out, but didn't go that way. All that kind of stuff. So really great chat. Thank you for facilitating that for us.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing.
I really love the piece around a projection there, and I see Roxanne's hand there. Roxanne, let me sort of yabbering on. I'd love to hear from you.
I attended a coach's breakfast last week. Paul Lawrence was talking about his new book coming out shortly, and he was talking to a group of people who are not necessarily team coaches, and he was saying, well, sometimes there's facilitation, sometimes there's coaching, there's team coaching, and I was thinking, well, for a team coach, you can understand that sometimes you're in facilitation, sometimes you're in team coaching, but for people who aren't team coaches, it might be tempting to call yourself a team coach, but facilitate. And in that case, you're directing the team. The team is not becoming autonomous and not accountable. They can't move forward without your presence. And I find that it can be easy to get into facilitation, and that's where supervision can be really helpful for a team coach, because we know there's a difference. But sometimes the team, just as in one-on-one, they're just asking, okay, so what are we supposed to do? Tell us. And then they can just evacuate and, refuse what you brought up, because they can do that. But if it comes from them, well, they have to be a bit more engaged. So for me, it's the difference between facilitation and team coaching. That's where the supervision can really make a difference.
Yeah. And I wonder if, there's parallels with supervision, as we move from supervising one-on-one and having maybe a model that we like, and then we're supervising team coaches, there might not be that model per se. So I wonder about that. Thank you for bringing that. Anybody else want to highlight something? There's some ethical, I see there's just so many chats coming in, but I see ethical coming up quite a bit. Does anybody want to speak to their comment in the chat, or? An ethical question for me is that I love team coaching, but always feel I still have to go a long way to grow into a team coach. When are you ready to move the team forward effectively? Ooh, that sounds juicy.
It sounds like something for supervision.
Yeah, I mean, a part of that ethical maturity is us sort of noticing where we're being played, where we start playing into the system itself. Jeremy spoke about the system maybe projecting onto us as well. What happens to us then when we get projected onto us? Like, how do we show up? Or when the team is saying this is not good enough, or can you just tell us what to do? What happens to us in those situations? Do we have that awareness of how we're being moved in that space too? And I think that's the same as what you're saying. There's lots of pieces here where I'm noticing that in general, we're saying, yeah, there's challenges, there's ethical issues, there's knowing ourselves as what's happening with the team and the system in the world. And so supervision is important. And as you saying there, Larissa, then, the supervisor needs supervision as well, as being a supervisor as well, because again, we get enrolled, or if somebody's coming with, you've got two co-coaches there, perhaps you're supervising them as well. How do you get enrolled? How do you work with a three? I'm looking at us as three there as well. How do you work with a three? And now there's a pair of co-coaches and that you're supervising. How does that show up in the space as well? So it's sort of meta again and again, all of these different levels of complexity.
I'm also thinking of, one of the comments was, when you're team coaching and working with the team, do you coach the individuals at the same time? Done that. I know for me, I won't do that again because it was just too much. Like, how do you hold that one-on-one coaching that you're doing, and then when you're working with the team, so how to hold those, I found a little bit challenging. And I mean, there's other coaches out there in the world, so I can just do the team coaching and have somebody else do it, and that might be different for another team coach. But to me, it just, ethically, and once again, when we talk about ethics, our values and all of that come into play, and our morals come into play as well, right? Because nowhere does it say that you should not do that. But I think what stands out for me is, can you hold that and still be effective as a team coach. And I felt I couldn't. Yeah.
And I think even there, Sherry, as well, can the system that we're working with hold that as well? There's always those perceived conflicts of interest that show up and shift those relationships there too.
And then if you're a supervisor working with this and you haven't experienced team coaching per se, are you being curious about the right things with your team coach? Are you asking those kinds of questions, right? Somebody, I think it was Esther, you were saying, am I ready? Well, if you're having that conversation with your supervisor, how are they supporting you and having that conversation with you? What are they looking for on their horizon? Esther, I see you come off mute. Do you want to add something there?
Yeah, I didn't want to. It's an insecurity I have. I know that, but what means a good team coach? Or what is it to be an excellent team coach? Where is the line? How do you get to it? Yes, supervisor conversations help absolutely significantly. However, the challenges come out when you are dealing with a complicated team. And that's where it becomes an art. And there are a few models around, and the models help turning it into a science, or certain assessments turn it into a science. But it really is, there is a fine line between doing the best job you can do or the best job that the team needs from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, how do you know when you're ready? I don't know. You have to kind of go in and then you reflect on that. And hopefully as you, reflect more and more, you start, as we say, to build those reflexivity muscles. So you're not just looking in the mirror at what happened, because then, oops, maybe I wasn't in best service to the team, but you're actually in the moment, able to be present and aware and kind of course adjust. And of course, that all sounds wonderful, but it's a practice, right? It's a practice.
And I think that
Go ahead. What I was trying to do with some teams is do a 360 and get feedback. But I'm sure that is a weird and an ethical question too.
Yeah, and I think in team coaching, just that with assessments, it's like, is the assessment on a 360 on the individual, or is it the 360 of the team, the collective? So there's lots of conversation there as well. And I'm just going to pick up on that last piece there, when Larissa said it's a practice to be reflexive and be able to notice in the moment what's happening in the room, moment to moment, with ourselves and with all the different subsystems that are there. We think that, the supervision space is a great place to practice being reflexive with your supervisors as well. What's happening here in the moment, and how is that a reflection of what's happening in the team coaching space as well, or in between as well. So I think I'm just going to put up one last little slide here.
Yeah, we're going to just share briefly the why, how, and what, and then hand it over to Nicola.
Yeah, so just sort of bringing, I guess, this to a close, the why, how, and what of team coaching supervision. So starting up at the top there with the why, as we've talked, and many of you have spoken about the complexity of team coaching. If we're out there team coaching, and there's all of these questions coming up with ourselves, there's a lot happening with the team. It's super complex. There's super complex with all the different systems there. So we do need a space for our own well-being, for the team's well-being, for us to practice our ethical maturity as well there, and our and our skills and competency as well. So the why is, why team coaching supervision? Because we're working with so much complexity. And the how, I'll speed up because I know we've got to get to the end. So, and then the how, so, you know, if the why is we're working with complexity, how do we do that? We do that by developing the capacity for reflexivity. So reflexivity, coffee conversation at the coffee machine. What is reflexivity? It's reflection in the moment, like however close you can get to the moment now, here in the moment.
Is it like reflex and adapt in action as well?
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and it's like making that gap smaller and smaller, right?
Because I think when you reflect, you just reflect afterwards yourself when you ponder over, right? So reflexivity kind of, to me, reflect and adapt.
Exactly, in that moment. So, you know, if we're developing that capacity for, you know, we need to work with complexity through developing the capacity for reflexivity. Where can we do that? You know, we can do that in many spaces, but having a specific reflective space where we can actually look through all those lenses of different systemic lenses, with team coaching supervisors that can be with you, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in group supervision for team coaches, or working with your co-coaches, taking your co-coach into supervision with someone that's actually done even more of that complexity work and more of that reflexivity work specifically for working with systems. So we'll stop there, I think.
Yes.
And pass it over to Nicola.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been a really, really great session. And I'm going to put a couple of bits in the chat here, actually, for everybody. And I'm going to say save the chat. So the things I'm going to put in the chat here are Kerry, Larissa's and Sherry's website. Go link in with them. Go link with them. But team, just before we sign off for this particular session, before we move into the networking, just a question for you three, really. What, I mean, the sharing that we've had and the insights that we've had, and everybody save the chat because it's just such a fantastic crowdsourced resource there. What sticks in your mind from the conversation we've just had?
Well, first, I just want to thank everyone for sharing, you know, their insights and what's emerged for them through this conversation today. And what I'm taking away is just, I'm going to say, a reminder of just how complex and rewarding team coaching is, and your reflections and that just reminded me of that today. So thank you for that. And it's just a privilege to be in a room of colleagues.
Yeah, I would echo that and say I'm definitely going to save the chat because there was lots of things that I missed that I want to reflect on later. But I think what shines through to me is just the state of our profession. And, you know, what will this conversation look like in 6 months, a year? What will we be talking about? Right now, it's kind of, what is it? How's it different? You know, how's that maybe gonna shift as we go forward and have more of these conversations. So thank you so much for engaging with us. And Kerry, how about for you?
Yeah, I'll lean on from that shift because I think hearing all of the awareness that we each have and what's showing up for us, really being a team coach, being a supervisor, being a team coach supervisor, it is personal development. It is about our journey. And if we're bringing this into the world, like what will our world look like when we all, as human beings, as leaders, as coaches, supervisors, really work on our development of ourselves? There's lots of possibility there. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all three of you. Can I give you a warm EMCC Global thank you for leading this conversation today? And it's an interesting point you raised about what, you know, in 6 months' time, what will we look back on and think, you know, did we get it right now? You know, what can we predict from 6 months ago? And we have, as part of this series has been running for a few years now as well. So I'd also encourage you to have a look at our YouTube playlist and see what we were talking about 6 months ago with regards to team coaching and a year ago. And we have our EMCC Global GPS Summit happening in November, 18th to the 21st, wall to wall, across the whole 4 days, around the clock, dialogues just like this one, but including team coaching. So if you haven't already put your name down for that, then do so. because the conversation does continue, and we continue to co-create our professional future. And conversations like this and all your engagement really does help us to, you know, check where we are, check where we're going, see if other people feel the same as us or different to us. So thank you to all of you for just engaging so brilliantly in this session. Thank you.